Body Electric, what is it? Oh, wait till you hear this summit. Okay. This doctor works directly with the mad scientist himself, Dr. Klinghardt. I was interviewed for her summit on Body Electric, and I was so fascinated. This has been one of my fascinations this year. This thing about energy in the body. I know, woo-woo, okay? I thought so too. I've changed my thinking just by hearing story after story about how people's lives change based on this science that you're going to hear in this show. During the summit, she interviews the best in the world. And during this interview, she talks about what she learned and all the things. And this is stuff you can start right now. And it's going to be awesome for you to hear this. And this is something you need to incorporate in your life. This science may not have been so important 20 years ago, 50 years ago, but man, is this information life-changing now. Stay tuned.
Welcome to Cellular Healing TV. I'm Ashley Smith, and today we welcome Dr. Christine Schaffer, who is a board-certified naturopathic physician. Christine is here today to discuss the biofield and how our bodies communicate with energy and frequency, what tools and therapeutics can be implemented, including grounding, one of my favorites. And she'll also talk a bit about the amazing summit she put together called Body Electric, which Dr. Pompa, you are a speaker on. So I cannot wait to watch that. I will link everything in our show notes. So let's get started and welcome Dr. Christine Schaffer and Dr. Pompa to the show. Welcome.
Thank you, Ashley. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited. I was on the summit of Body Electric, and I was very excited to introduce you to our viewers and listeners. This topic, I have to start here. It's so woo-woo when we talk about energy and Body Electric that I oftentimes, get the response back from people or the feeling that, it's okay, yeah, that's important, but they really don't believe how important, or, because they think it's just woo-woo, or they just throw it out, or even if they do believe it, they don't really believe how important it is. I'm going to say, the last year, I've really dug deeper in the science around this topic, and I've come out a stronger believer that, especially today, this is a game changer in people's health. I mean, obviously, EMF, these energy exposures, dirty electricity. I've done a lot of things on Facebook about it. And it takes this with me, Christine. It takes me getting very sick people, which I help, right? I coach very, very sick and challenged people. And it takes stories like, we got rid of the Wi-Fi or the smart meter and this and that, and now I'm sleeping through the night. Mm-hmm. Then that makes me dig deeper, and it also makes me a believer. So I'm a believer. I hope that you can bring the science here. I could, talk about everything, all the discoveries that I've learned here, but you're going to make it simple. I know you are. This summit, I'm excited for this summit because you've interviewed and you can talk about some of them, the experts, in the world around this topic. And I can tell you, this is not woo-woo. This is real science. But first of all, Body Electric, what is that? And how does this make us sick? And how can it make us well?
Well, thank you so much for being part of the summit.
Yeah.
And, I think it's just, the time is right, to bring this information. I think, as you mentioned, there's so much information now and awareness around Wi-Fi and 5G and cell phones. And, I think we need to bring us back to the conceptual framework of how our bodies communicate with energy, frequency, and vibration to really understand how these tools and technologies impact our health and our well-being. And, the Body Electric. So it's funny, I came up with this idea for the summit in a yoga class. I do yoga regularly to try to clear my mind and, connect. And, that came to me, and really it was, the word that came to me was around biophysics. So I work with Dr. Klinghardt at Sophia Health Institute in Seattle. And, he has always, he's taught me a ton about biochemistry, of course. And I think we're really great at biochemistry. I know that you do a lot of great work with detoxification, and we're looking about, all the biochemical, things that need to happen or get blocked when people are sick. But, one of his reflections was, when people really recover from a chronic illness is that we integrate not only biochemical tools, but also tools that really heal the body using biophysics. And so we interact with a lot of those technologies and tools at Sophia a lot, and I have a trust in them and a belief in them. And, patients have taught me that these are really important. But like you, you go through these phases when you're practicing medicine, and there was just a strong desire for my brain and my mind to learn more as I'm sharing this information to our audiences and our community. And so, one of the things I always like to say, Dr. Pompa, when people are starting to, okay, what do we mean by body electric, is that we know that our heart, right, has a strong electromagnetic field that is measurable in conventional medicine. We know EKGs measure that all the time. There is a language for that. We also know that we have brain waves that can be measured with EEG. So we have, in conventional medicine that's not blue at all, we have tools and technologies that are picking up this electromagnetic nature of our bodies. And so I want to take this a step deeper with our discussions around concepts of what we call the biofield. I think the biofield is a wonderful term. Dr. Rubik, who's on the summit, she's one of these frontier scientists, and she studied biophysics in Berkeley. And she brought the term biofield into PubMed in the 1990s, and this whole language for NIH to study biofield sciences. So this whole idea that we have this electromagnetic energy that's emitted from the body, and it's a language to also maybe conceptualize ancient traditions, discussions around chi and prana and meridians and all of that. But the one concept that I know that we're going to get into is, kind of changes. There was a theme with a lot of the speakers, and that it's not just this kind of afterthought or this random field that's generated from our physical organs, but that field of information actually is intelligent and organizes and instructs and regulates our physical body. So really, when we're recovering our health, this has to be part of the conversation. And I think we're doing that in the alternative medicine probably world more than we realize, with the tools that we're in therapies that we're all drawn to. But I just really, when you see the patients we both see, we want them not to just feel better, but really recover on a deep, profound level so they get their life back and they don't have to, just be in constant fear about, their health declining again.
That's awesome. I can't wait for it because, like I said, this has been a focus of mine for the last year. And again, just, hearing from people, okay, they get rid of this in their life and they get better. But, I've taken that step to, hey, add this to your life. And we see, I think the first introduction I had to near infrared, this was, years ago, but it was one of my autoimmune clients that had severe psoriasis, started doing some near light with Juve and transformed her and her cellular energy. Then pulsed electromagnetic fields. I'm going to be doing an interview with Pulse, and I have a unit. I use it every day just because it just puts me in this parasympathetic zone where I just fall asleep and I feel amazing. And I test everything. My heart rate variability changed in my wife's dramatically by using this. It's pulsed electromagnetic fields. So these fields can affect us for, crushing our health and our immune system. And we can use these energies to help us. Okay, you've interviewed most of the experts. Give us some takeaways. Give us some takeaways on both sides, like some, things that these energies that we need to get rid of, and the things that you have found and these experts have found that are the game changers.
Yeah, I was so, blessed to have talked to so many wonderful experts. And there's definitely the common theme, how I shared that, in order to create health and to get rid of disease, we have to create more what we call coherence in the biofield. And what that can mean, just for a very simplistic and not getting into physics, just how do we create the flow? How do we remove blockages and create more flow in our energy field? And so there's lots of tools that we can talk about. But that's a theme that I want you to think about when you're thinking about these concepts and the things and the stressors that we need to get away from. I do have a number of experts who talk about EMF. So, with the upcoming 5G implementation and how that's going to affect our bodies, and how can we really create a safe sleeping location. I think that's one of the most important things to reduce our EMF exposure, because, you know, it's going to probably get worse before it gets better, but how can we feel empowered? And start with your sleeping location. So measure it, know what you're up against, turn off your Wi-Fi, even turning off the electricity. We have people do that at night. If you need to take it a step further, you can measure the dirty electricity. You can get filters in your bedroom. You can do different shielding techniques, from graphite paint, window films, to even what's called a sleep sanctuary to help mitigate the EMF. I caution you to always, work with an expert, because some of these technologies need to be grounded, and, you just don't want to do this willy-nilly. You want to know what you're dealing with, and, you want to measure before and after, so you know that what you're doing is working. So, but if you, Beverly made a point, and I'm going back to Dr. Rubik, one of the things that you can do, even if you can't spend all that money on all that mitigation, most of us have a smartphone, and just start using your smartphone in a very safe and mindful way. Don't put it on your body.
Absolutely.
Don't put it in your head. Keep it, distance is your friend with these technologies. So, keeping them away from your body is, something that you can do today. And so, that's something that people are talking about. And then, when we think about other energies, so we have EMF, and then there's a lot of conversations around trauma, and how trauma, past traumas. We also talk about this kind of ancestral trauma, or generational trauma, if you want to kind of frame it in that way, but how trauma can actually affect our biofield and can affect our, physical body. And so Eileen McCusick, she has a system called biofield tuning. So she uses tuning forks, and she's kind of mapped out the biofield and finds that there's certain patterns where people have different traumas or different stored emotions. And she actually uses sound and vibration to create more coherence where trauma might have affected the biofield. So, of course, talk therapy can be helpful, and I don't just, dissuade people from doing that on some level. But if you're feeling stuck, and you know that you have maybe you maybe have a history that you haven't really acknowledged, but traumas and the work that we do at Sophia, we've acknowledged that can create a susceptibility to chronic illness. And so there's lots of modalities, from tuning forks to something called EFT. I have a couple practitioners who do tapping, and tapping can help create more.
We've interviewed, we've done some interviews with that.
So those are, important to think about. And then, just kind of bridging the gap and starting to think of things that we can do. We have a conversation about water. So we all have to, drink water every day, right? So I have Dr. Klinghardt interviewed Dr. Pollock, Jerry Pollock, who came up with the fourth phase of water. And then we also talked to Dr. Boros, who talks about the deuterium levers in water. So
we just did an interview on deuterium. We just did a thing with the NanoVi, which
we have that at Sophia.
I use it every day. So when I lay out my pulse, I'm doing the fourth phase of water. So
nice.
These are huge things. See, this all came out of my research this last year. Realizing how important these things are, And to your point, and I'll let you go on, but to your point about, sometimes we turn off our Wi-Fi and we're doing all these great things in the home. Two cases that popped into my mind. My friend Ben Greenfield, he did de-EMF'd his whole existence, right? Only finds out when the guy comes out, a professional he hires to come out and measure, he's getting this EMF exposure on the one side of his house. It's because there was an electrical thing that was, creating it, where they're making electricity. It was too close to his house. I don't remember how far, maybe within 5 miles. Didn't know it. He had to paint and the whole side and put up shielding, windows and all, to stop that from coming in and affecting him and his family. I had one of my clients, same thing. We couldn't figure out what was going on, and she was like, every time she'd be in her house, anxious. She had all the Wi-Fi turned off. As it turned out, her neighborhood had these little Wi-Fi things. Anyways, it was hitting her house. They had to move. Yeah. So the point is, to your point, you have to educate yourself about these things. I mean, Summit's going to do that, obviously. But go ahead. Okay, some great shares already.
The water, and the water conversation. So we talk about exclusion zone water, fourth phase of water. We talk about deuterium depletion. We also have Dr. Cowan talking about structured water, and he's taking Dr. Pollock's concept and talking about how the water inside our cells are actually exclusion zone water, and it's actually this gel-like cytoplasm that actually affects our cell voltage and our charge. And he goes down the rabbit hole, but does a really great job of doing that, and also talks about structured water and how that helps our cell communication. And then Kelly Halderman talks about hydrogen water. So, I was like, no one knows what to do about water, but I maybe made it too complicated that we have to get, of course, the fluoride and the metals out, the deuterium out, maybe, add some hydrogen and structure the water, and maybe then we have it figured out. But it's a work in progress, but they're both, all of the water experts, have a lot to offer to the conversation. And I think this is one of those foundational pieces, right? Hydration, cell voltage, cell communication, depends on proper hydration and electrolyte balance and exclusion zone water in our cells. So that was a really fun rabbit hole. It sounds like you've gone down as well.
When you start going into this, you realize, wow, there's so much here, right? The energy in water, good or bad, that's the key to hydration, that our cells have this exclusion zone water, easy water, as we kind of reference it. But I went, okay, what can I do about this? How do I up this? Because like you said, we're going to more and more EMFs, bad, electromagnetic frequencies we're bombarded with. How do I detox from it? And that's the discoveries here that you're going to be sharing in the summit, obviously. I mean, and I've discovered a lot of them too. So,
and you think about EMF has this multifactorial effect on our body, and Dr. Paul's doing great research and talking about the voltage gated calcium channels and how that's affected, and we know that can affect everything from melatonin depletion to just affecting cellular communication and DNA transcription, and so we know that, but then it's like, how do we continue to combat that stress, or also make our bodies less of an antenna, for, that stress. And one of the things that probably every speaker talked about also is the impact of grounding, and how, connecting, bare feet with the earth, and getting those electrons, from the earth to help to reduce.
So let's focus on that a little bit, because again, this is a subject that everyone can do right now. Right. And, right now I'm experimenting with sleeping with and without grounding. When my son broke his back, we were grounding his areas of injury, as advised by somebody. And so talk about grounding. What does it even mean? Why does it matter? And why are we not grounded today?
Yeah. And it's, again, grounding is something everyone can do. And, the cheapest way to do that is, take your shoes off and connect with the earth. And so what we're getting, from the earth when we make contact with the earth is that we're getting actually absorbing electrons, from the earth, and we're absorbing those through our feet. And then our body actually is able to have this electron reserve repleted, because modern day stress depletes our electron reserves, and that can create more free radical stress and inflammation in our body. So it's a way to continually combat the chronic stress that modern life, impacts us with. And so, so grounding you can do with the earth. There are technologies to help support you. Nowadays, there are grounding pads. You can sleep on them. That can help you to also replete and restore at night. My caution with that is, when you use a grounding pad, just make sure it's grounded. So, if you're not, and this has happened where people plug them in and their electrical outlet isn't actually grounded with the earth. You can actually, I think, measure that at Home Depot. There's a tool that you can just plug into your plug and make sure that it has a ground. Dr. Klinghardt would take it a step further and say, only use a grounding pad if you can actually ground it in the earth, out the window. But, you should feel better from that. So if you're feeling, jittery or, not well with with a grounding pad, it's either not grounded or it's too stimulating or too much at that time.
Yeah, no, I mean, so sleeping, right? Are you grounded? Well, you could talk about that, because what's your bed made of? What's your house? There's a lot of factors here. So people, I think, need to understand, can they be grounded in their house? What about sleep, which is where probably it's the most important to be grounded? What can they do? So one thing that, we have a little grounding wire that you can either put in the ground. You know how you have 3 plugs? The bottom little round one is the ground, but simple device, as you pointed out, make sure it is in fact grounded. Then you could plug it into that, or you could run a longer wire and literally put a metal rod in the ground outside and run it to your bedroom. So I'm experimenting with putting these little grounding effects on me. But anyway, so talk about that. When are you grounded? Are you grounded in your house? Are you not? What about sleep?
Well, sleep, to your point, just, touching on sleep, we're always talking about sleep because of how our lymphatic system, our brains detoxify at bedtime, right?
Yeah.
So our brains actually shrink 60% of size to make room for the flow of lymph through the brain. And that's a big way that we get toxicity out of our brain. And so when we're thinking about brain health and neurological disease, sleep is critical. And so, when we think about sleep, it's an EMF protected environment. We also, some people sleep inclined. I don't know if you do that yet, Dr. Pompa, but actually at a 5-degree incline at night. And that can help lymph drainage out of your brain and can be supportive in that way. And then, you can take it up a notch, right? So your mattress materials obviously are going to be important, not to divert us, but I know some patients, mattresses can get moldy over the years. So that can be, if you're having bad sleep and you're doing everything, just your mattress could be affecting you. You talked about metal springs versus, wood box springs or no box spring, but the metal springs can disrupt, our sleep and can affect our body's ability to ground and detox at bedtime. And then, other things around.
Can we offset that real fast? I'm sorry. Can we offset that by sleeping on a grounding mat, or these things I have that you just stick on yourself and ground to the ground? Can we offset the metal bed or the metal springs? Because people are going, okay, hold on, wait, I'm not going out right now and buying a new bed.
Absolutely. I think that we can. And I think it's, again, individual. And I don't know about the grounding pads yet. So I'm excited to learn, about those from you. But absolutely. I mean, I know both of our jobs is to educate people, and we overwhelm people very easily, I'm sure, so that's, when I see a new patient, I'm like, I'm going to really overwhelm you, but this is a new language, and how can we create small changes over time? And, it's like, what the goal is how do we decrease these cumulative stressors, right? So cumulative means that it's not going to one night just, break you, but it's this constant daily stress, right? So how can we reduce that impact on in our health and in our health and in our lives? And that's where we see, change, happen. And so to your point, I think that there are, little things that we can do over time. And I don't personally sleep with a grounding pad, but I do have some patients who really, enjoy that. I mean, I'm not promoting a brand, but Samina is somebody who we work closely with, and they have actually a grounding pad, I think from Austria, that a lot of my patients consistently say that their sleep is more restorative. Some of my patients don't sleep on grounding pads, but they actually sleep on biomats or those infrared or amethyst mats. So, what these different tools and technologies are doing are not only grounding the body, but also improving circulation, blood flow, and just allowing the body to get into parasympathetic so you can have really restorative sleep. And that's where
and I love measuring everything, and I have devices to do that. I Ashley, she's listening, but I don't even know the name of it. I'm experimenting with a very inexpensive way to ground and just put these on your body at night, and you don't even have to buy a grounding pad. So I mean, anyways, I'll add the link. And again, I'm like you, I'm not even promoting it because I'm still partway through my experiment, but they've experimented with it and, have before and after studies on REM sleep, deep sleep. And to your point, I love what you just taught me, the 5% little head raise, because I can actually do that, with the bed I have. And, the lymphatic, we just learned recently, science, that the brain even has lymph channels.
I know.
Right?
I think like 2015, I think that we discovered that.
Yeah, right? 2015. That's just learned, right? Yeah. I mean, but anyways, so the amount of REM sleep, I think that's when most of that happens. So I look at the amount of REM versus, that's kind of what I'm looking at here, with some of this grounding. But anyways, so there's some great tips, folks, maybe raise yourself up, help that lymphatic drainage, try some type of grounding. And I'll put the link of what I'm, not promoting it because I'm actually studying it now. But Google grounding pads, right? So talk about your home. I mean, when we're walking around our home, What about with shoes, without, and in our home without shoes? I mean, you know,
Mhm.
when are we grounded? When aren't we? We talked about the bed. So what about just everything?
You know, I didn't, that didn't really come up in conversation as much. I mean, what I would, you know, think about, you know, with grounding in your home. I mean, of course, the materials, you know, that are in your home. What kind of flooring do you have? You know, Dr. Klinghardt has studied a lot with building biology and how we kind of set up Sophia. We have a lot of cork flooring, you know, which is going to be a little bit more supportive, you know, for people. And so we actually have people take off their shoes when they come into Sophia. And so we, you know,
So
practice
again,
that.
a rubber bottomed
Yeah.
sole is not grounding you. Just,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to be
Yeah.
clear why you people take their shoes off.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, and then, you know, to that point too, when you're thinking about your home, I mean, when I think about grounding, I also think about, and you mentioned this also, dirty electricity. I think that gets overlooked often, you know, in the EMF conversation, but that has to do with the wiring of your home, and that can, you know, create these disharmonic, you know, fields that come out of the wall and the wiring. And so you can measure that, and you can put filters in your rooms to offset that. The steps are filters. I know we have them here. I don't know if you can see one in the shot, but yeah, we use them here as well. And so, you know, there's so much, you know, that you can do. I mean, the long and the short of it, you know, with our home environments, I mean, I think that for whatever reason in our country, you know, there's a lot of building materials that are not the healthiest, right, for our bodies. And so I think that we have a long way to go, you know, to create healthier homes, healthier environments where not only we have the electromagnetic fields and the ability to ground in our home, but also healthy materials that are not full of VOCs or ones that are prone to growing mold or, you know, so forth. But I think there's a lot, you know, I'd like to see the direction, you know, as we think about health, like how do we really create healthy buildings and healthy homes? And,
yeah, I mean, most homes, if you take your shoes off, you'd be grounded, you know, wood floors, you know, and there's some things that probably do it more. An example outside, regular cement, I've heard, you tell me if I'm wrong, is you'll ground through it, but asphalt you don't. Well, I guess one is synthetic, that's why, and one is made from sand and you know, natural things. So I mean, I guess as a general thing, if it's man-made, it's probably not very good at grounding, if at all. It's natural, it's grounding. But then steel would be an example that, you know, well, it's man-made, but yet it's natural components, but yet it's not grounding. So is there any other help that we can give our viewers?
You know, not at the top of my head, but I feel like, you know, just also in nature, right? You know, not only, you know, are we thinking about the sand and the grass, but, you know, definitely different types of rock and stone. And, you know, some people, you know, have that type of flooring, you know, in their home that could be more helpful, but not, you know, not that I know of other than that.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move away from grounding. What are some of the other gems that you learned that people can do right now to help their body electric?
Yeah, so you know, we talked about a lot of different also modalities. So if you're struggling with a chronic illness and you feel like you're maybe not seeing the result, if you're just taking supplements all day and, you know, really feeling like you need more support, you know, we talked about something called frequency-specific microcurrent. So that Dr. Carolyn McMakin, she uses frequency-specific microcurrent, and that's adding healthy resonant frequencies to the body to restore communication. And so we use that at Sophia, and we've seen some wonderful things with that. You know, other tools and technologies, color, right? So everyone can get in touch with color. So color is, you know, different colors are different wavelengths of light. And Dr. Deanna Minnick talks about even incorporating different colored foods and how that can affect our physical body and our energetic body. We use also something called photodynamic therapy at Sophia, and we're using something called the Weber medical laser, and we can use laser or different colors of light to affect different biological systems. So we use intravenous light. Yeah, and this can also be used in acupuncture meridians as well, but there's red light, blue light, yellow light, there's UV light, infrared light, green light, and each light has a different.
I've used that. I use that device at Hope for Cancer. Doctor, I know exactly what you're talking about. It works amazing. Obviously, they're using it for cancer. It's at Hope for Cancer. but for Lyme disease, etc. And folks, just understand what you're saying. We get the benefit of different lights. I use my red light therapy, but this is actually going IV with it's a laser, it's a light, and it goes through like maybe 20 minutes each, like green, then yellow, then blue, then and anyways, and it's transformative for people, and it's basically affecting the mitochondria, right? I mean, the cells directly.
Yeah, each light has different properties, but we're affecting absolutely the mitochondria, everything from that to actually helping to allow our red blood cells to carry more oxygen. We're also having anti-infective or anti-pathogen effects of, things like blue light can, be antibacterial. Yellow light is wonderful. It's antiviral. It also could increase serotonin production in the body and vitamin D production in the body. So we just got our Weber in the beginning of the year, and we've just seen some wonderful things, and people feel really good from it. And so, if you're not, you don't have access to that device, they actually have a home unit. I don't know if you've experimented with this. It's the laser watch, the Weber medical laser watch. And I have one myself, and I try to wear it 30 minutes a day, but it has all the different colors that the light goes on the wrist. So there's acupuncture meridians on the wrist, but it's also an area of high blood flow. So,
someone told me about the watch. Have you noticed good results? How much are they?
I feel good. There's two versions. There's one Spectra, which has all of the lights, and then there's one that's less expensive that's just red or green. So I think the Spectra was about $1,500, and then the red and green alone, I think it's around $600. Don't quote me, but they're that kind of price difference. But you can, the cool thing with the Spectra too, it has a pad, it has a nasal, so you can do intranasal light therapy. It has ear buds too, so you can get light in different areas. Dr. Weber is quite brilliant, and I'm still really learning a lot about photodynamic therapy, but it's all about not only the wavelength of light, but the depth of penetration and where the light can access in the body. And so so it's great. I'm really enjoying mine. I feel I feel really good on a regular basis, but I feel like it just I use it at night before I go to bed, and I feel
and it's a way to increase deep sleep. And and again, it's actually testable. But so let me ask you a question. Why do you think that these light therapies are having such a big impact on people today? Because they do. When people add red light therapy, different therapies, it really does make a difference. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I think, part of the conversation we're having in the Body Electric, and what Dr. Klinghardt really taught me, and what he talks about at the Body Electric Summit, is about the Biophoton Theory, and how we all, there's Dr. Pop, he's a German researcher, and he came up with this Biophoton Theory, this understanding that all living organisms, and us being one of them, that we emit these low emissions of light. And so he was able to look at people who had cancer, and how their light was very low in their body, and then people who had MS had too much light. And so we're supposed to have this coherent light that is emitted from our cells, and this is also a huge way that our body communicates. And this is the conversation we're trying to really pique everyone's curiosity in, is that we're not just these organisms with just these chemical signaling that happens all day long, but we also, our bodies communicate with light. And Lynn McTaggart is actually on the summit, and she has a book called The Power of Eight, which is all about intention and basically kind of prayer, and seeing people's profound healing with that. But she wrote a book before that called The Field, and I'm rereading it right now, and she goes into the science about this not only the field of energy we're all interconnected with, but she talks a lot about the research that I wish was more present and more commonly discussed, about how the human body really communicates with light. And so each of these colors, and each of with the intravenous laser, they're talking to different it's like the lights are actually turning on different enzymes and different biochemical processes in the body. And so I also think about it, we already had this talk here, I think it increases our exclusion zone water. And so that helps, I think health is a relationship to how much exclusion zone water we have in our bodies. And so it's helping us to maintain, cell voltage and cell charge, and then also exclusion zone water is exclusion. So and where exclusion zone water is, we can't have as many environmental toxins in that area. So it kind of excludes those and moves those out of the body. So, I'm still learning, and I have a lot to
Me
learn.
too. Yeah,
But I feel like, I've only been practicing medicine for 9 years, and I helped do so for a long time. And, the summit really piqued my curiosity with a lot of tools and therapies, this being one of the primary ones to explore more with my patients.
Have you used the NanoVi? I did a show on it here. Do you use it in your clinic there?
Yeah, we do. Yeah. We often pair that with IV therapy if people are hanging out in the IV room.
Yeah, I pair it with different things as well, but I use it. I can't say I use it every day, but almost.
Yeah, no, that's a great tool, and then just, another tool that's, you're not taking a pill, but it's supporting your body and decreasing free radical stress and, also improving the exclusion zone water in the cells.
Yeah, and the exclusion zone water, folks, if you haven't watched that episode, Ashley, put that in here because people will be like, what are they talking about?
Yeah.
They go back and watch specifically about that. But, this is where we fold proteins. I mean, this is the water in the cells that, proteins is who you are. It's life. It's how you make hormones, how you make every tissue, cell in the body. And if you're lacking this, then it's going to affect like every aspect of your cellular health and function in your body. So, Pollock, I really should interview him about it, but learning more about it as well. And to your point, I think that being around all of the false lights that we are around today, everything's going LED, everything's going, the old incandescent light, which was the closest to full spectrum that we could get. Can you even buy those? You can in Home Depot.
It's harder.
It's harder. They're more expensive.
Right.
It's like, so anyways, it's just crazy. So we're surrounded by these lights that are very limited on their spectrum. I think that's one of the big reasons why this light, therapy has really become a game changer for people. I really do.
No, I agree. And Dave Asprey's on the summit, and he's, he talks a lot about junk lighting and, how, you can use different, glasses to affect the eyes. So the eyes are getting the right signal of light at the right time of day and everything. And it can really affect not only, all of this junk lighting can affect not only our electromagnetic field, but also our circadian rhythm, right? And so that's a huge part of our health. And when we get ill, that gets often dysregulated. So I think a light has a lot to do with that, of course, as well.
Yeah. Dave talks a lot about obviously that. You see him with his blue blocker glasses on.
I think he had him on in the interview. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny because I'm still in that like trying phase, and I kind of screwed up my own experiment because I was wearing the glasses and looking at my deep sleep, which, they say it absolutely affects. And I want to know how much. Is it a big deal? Is it a little deal? But then I started doing PEMF. I started doing all these things. So it's like, okay. My deep sleep is about on average 2 hours a night, which for someone 54 my age, seems like it's pretty darn good because I ask around. I ask a lot of questions. But anyways, the point is now I have to kind of go back and say, okay, now let me do it without the glasses because I got my deep sleep up because I was doing so many things. So anyways, fun things that I do to experiment with this stuff. But to your point though, I'm learning too. I want to know. I know the light stuff, like I said, even before bed, it is real, but to what degree? I want to know. I want to know how much grounding while I'm sleeping is affecting me. So, stay tuned. Okay, some other ones. Maybe some other interviews that really just stuck out in your mind with the summit.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun also interviewing Dr. Garcia. He teaches biomagnetism. So he uses paired magnets on the body to help affect, he talks about cellular communication and affect pH levels. So it's just this whole other way to affect the physical body with magnets. And so he sees a very similar patient population that we both do. And so I had a lot of fun, talking to him. We also had Donna Eden, who, she's one of the, she has one of the first books that I can recall on energy medicine. And she's just full of a lot of love and light. And she gives people a lot of home tools and exercises to work with these energy systems in the body. And she actually had MS when she was in her 20s, and so I think she's in her 70s now. And I mean, you should see her and her partner in the interview. They both look very vibrant and healthy, and so that was also a lot of fun. And then Dr. Klinghardt, actually, he talks about his autonomic response testing, the form of applied kinesiology or muscle testing that we do in the office. And he goes into that a little bit more. So he doesn't really talk about that on a lot of interviews. So that was really fun for him to break that down and just, bring that to light for people who are wondering, how and why that works. So I really enjoyed, that talk as well. Dr. Mercola, is on the summit.
Yeah.
And he's just, he's a lot of fun, and he's, similar to you, always trying to experiment on himself and figuring out what's going on. So he has a lot to offer about what he's excited about, right now. So, I'm sure I could continue to pick my brain. I was just one of those, one other, person to mention, Jim or James Oshman, who has the energy medicine textbook. So just kind of circling back and bringing this into this kind of really rooted, grounded field, is that he has this beautiful energy medicine book, and he, if you want to get a refresher on physics, he talks about, how these things work and why they work, and then applies them to, human biology. And I love his concept and his ideas around the living matrix. And so this is this idea that the intracellular environment is completely interconnected to the extracellular environment, and to, to our fascia and, our lymphatic system, and how our body.
Name of the book? What's the name of it?
It's called Energy Medicine by Jim or James Oshman. And he termed the coin living matrix. And he talks about this is the area where energy medicine actually works. And that, the living matrix, or this interconnection of like our whole connective tissue to our intracellular environment, that it not only communicates with biochemistry and hormones and all of these things, but it also communicates with light and vibration and sound, and that's where energy medicine is working. And so he has some really beautiful ideas.
That was one of my questions: is give us a book for our listeners and viewers, because this is so new to all of us. I guess you did that Energy Medicine by James Oshman. Can the average person read or understand it?
It's you absolutely, everyone can read it, and maybe not everyone will be as drawn to it, because it is, it's a little bit more, science.
There's probably parts read over the science.
It's a menu. It's a menu that you can. If you also want to read more of the science, I would encourage you to read Lynn McTaggart's book, The Field. I think that's a really excellent book.
The Field.
Yeah, and then Donna Eden, she has her book Energy Medicine as well, and she talks about, if you want just that conceptual book of like all the energy systems in the body. Ari Whitten is on the summit, and he talks a lot about red and infrared light, and goes down deep into the science of why red and infrared light work. And then a lot of the speakers actually have books. I mean, Jerry, of course, has the Fourth Face of Water book. Dr. Cowan has a number of books, and he's just coming out with a book, Cancer and the New Biology of Water. So he's talking about water and his ideas there. So there's a lot of, my goal and my desire was just to give you a broad, overview of a lot of different topics and see what resonates with you. Right.
So how can they order the summit now? Because I know everyone watching this is going to want to order the summit. Can they do it right now?
Yeah, you should have a link, in the notes. So they can go there, but it's the Body Electric Summit, and it was just.
We'll put a link in, folks. We'll add a link. Ashley will do that. You just click on it, and you'll be able to order a link. Okay, last question for you, Klinghardt. He's a mad scientist. Maybe I am too. What's it like working with Klinghardt? I have to ask.
It's a loaded question. Right now, it's of course normal to me, but no, he's brilliant. He's a brilliant mind. He's a thought leader. I mean, he was really talking about EMF in the early 2000s. He was ahead of the curve, and it's interesting to see his ideas. He has really pioneering ideas, and then over time, we learn to understand and explain them more and more, with, okay, how's this working? The research is showing this. And so, yeah, I like to see, I kind of, when I see his mind working, I know that he's opened up to, this whole other, ability to receive information. And, the thing that I really respect about him is, he's going to be 69 and he's seeing patients right now, in the other room, and he works from like the moment he gets up. He was at a conference. He works all day. He'll stay and see patients till 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock at night. He's teaching seminars. He's in his passion, and I really admire that, and I try to emulate that, and just educating myself, educating our community, and really trying to figure out how we can make our protocols more and more effective for people.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, we appreciate all that you do, and just your connection there with Klinghart and the mad scientist that he is. We appreciate him, though. So thank you for all that you brought today. What a great, I know so many people watching this are going to jump on that summit. That's for sure. I sure am. I can't wait I jotted down, matter of fact, so many names. I got to watch that one. Just write that down. That's what I was doing. So this is a new world we're living in. And, maybe this wouldn't have been as important, 50, 100 years ago, maybe not even 20 years ago, but oh my gosh, is it important now? And I'm really excited. So thank you for bringing the message here and with the summit, Dr. Christine. Appreciate you.
Well, thank you so much for having me and your participation. And I'm really excited to get this information out there. So thank you.
Right. Thank you.
Well, that's it for this week. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. This episode was brought to you by Cytodetox. Please check it out at buycytonow.com. We'll be back next week and every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern. We truly appreciate your support. You can always find us at cellularhealing.tv, and please remember to spread the love by liking, subscribing, giving an iTunes review, and sharing the show with anyone you think may benefit from the information heard here. And as always, thanks for listening.